Good afternoon to the Barbados Beach House build. Hope you guys are well. Sorry I've not checked in for a while. There's not been a great deal going on, but I thought I'd just check in because we've got some stuff happening. As you can hear in the background, there's some hammering and some drilling going on. I'll show you what's going on there in a second. And then we're downstairs in what is the officey, basement-y, apartment-y thing. Before I start gassing and boring you to death, give me a quick thumbs up below if you don't mind. And anybody new to the channel, if you don't mind subscribing, that's greatly appreciated. And there's a plethora of videos for you to watch on the goods and bads of building a house in the Caribbean, and some of the pitfalls to avoid, and some of the positives and solutions we found that might help you save some money and time. So where are we at the moment? So for those new to the channel, downstairs, this is the basement. So I'm going to go up and show you where we are in a minute in compared to the house itself. But downstairs, this was meant to be a hole full of marl. So when we had the architectural drawings done, upstairs is a patio. The whole house is out of the actual floor by about 8 foot in some areas, 4 foot in another because the land is at an angle. And this is the bridge, if you like, from the main house over to the cottage. And landed up creating what in effect was an 8-9 foot depth space, roughly 35 foot square. So I paid to have all of the soil and all of the product taken away. In my head, why would I then spend a fortune on marl, filling it, compacting it and sealing it? It just didn't make any sense. So it meant that we could open up a doorway into the bottom of the house. It meant we could put a couple of columns in. I don't think we put enough columns in. I think we should have really had 4 here. So maybe those 2 could have gone a bit further over and another 2 here. The downside is, if you're going to want to make this into a 1-bedroom apartment, having columns everywhere was difficult. What we've done now is obviously created the columns where the bedroom would be. So in this corner here, that would be a bedroom up until about, let me try and do this right, until about that column there. Then be a doorway there into what would be the bathroom. And then what we're standing in is a living room, kitchen, diner. Sockets all over the wall here where the kitchen would be, all along that wall. We've had a quote to have some glass French doors put in there to let the light in and to seal the draft, etc. And we've had a quote to have that door done as well. For your information, Oran have quoted about 4,800 for those 2 doors, not fitted. That's just supply only. And that will be, I assume, they only do single glazed here, so it won't be a double glazed unit, it'll be a single glaze, but it would be better to put double there, just purely to try and again keep the cold in and keep the heat out. Okay, next question. We are literally now insulating the ceiling. This is the patio above. It gets red hot. As you can see, I'm sweating. As you can see, I'm downstairs. That gets to about, upstairs yesterday was 47 degrees on the floor. Down here was 43 degrees. And obviously heat transfers. So down here is like a sauna. So we're testing out a few different examples here. So we've got this silver foiled panel work that the air conditioning guys use to make their ducting. Because it's silver foiled, it's a good reflector and it's a good insulator. But we've also got this polystyrene, which I bought in to insulate containers. So they're around about 4 foot in length. They're around about 2.5 inches in depth. But as people might know, sticking an insulation onto a heat surface helps heat transfer. So in an ideal world, we need to create a cavity. What I don't want to do is create any loss of height in here because we are only 7.2 foot to the ceiling. So by the time we put 2 inches of 2.5 inches of plasterboard and wood, we are coming down to that 7 foot. And that is perfect. If we start losing any more, and that becomes visually not claustrophobic, but it is low, obviously. Now, when we're doing the actual laser heat transfer onto here to see which one's more effective, the heat down here also goes into the product, so you can't quite get which one is the best insulation solution. However, I know I need to create a cavity. So, I think, let me know in the comments below whether you agree, but I think this solution here is going to be the best one. The silver foiled, which is 3/4 of an inch, silver foiled sheets screwed straight in right across the wooden joists, creating what in effect is a 2-inch cavity. The cavity will help prevent the heat transfer from the concrete straight down. These ones work out just about right, but they're around about 3 to 4 mil deeper in depth than the joists, which means that if we plasterboarded over that, number one, we're directly on the concrete. Number two, we would be away from the wood by about 2 to 3 millimeters. So that's potentially not an option anyway. The other option was to stick that into the ceiling and put that over the top, which would thicken the actual insulation, but then you are gluing directly onto the concrete and again then heat transferring. So these are all geared, by the way, to slot into each other. As you can see, they're diagonal, so alternate, they literally create one flush panel. So it looks like we're going to go ahead with this silver foil sheets and we're going to create the cavity. I think that's what we're going to do. They'll also help us with things like cutting out the cables and poking them through the hole. We'll have to plasterboard that silver foil afterwards, so we are going to come down by 1.25 inches. 3/4 of an inch for the insulation and then 1/2 inch for the board. And we also have gone with the green board, which is a moisture resistant. Because it's downstairs in the basement, it should be okay. But as you can see on the columns here, we're plasterboarding in moisture resistance. If we have any problems in here with water, with flooding, you've seen the flooding we can get here, then obviously the moisture resistant stuff does help. Well, it doesn't blow and absorb like a sponge, number one. So if there is any water issues, it would just be a better product under that circumstance. So we're in the midst of obviously plasterboarding the beams and the columns. There's a beam at the back that needs to be done as well. Koymans did all of our plasterboard during the week, so thanks Koymans. However, they dumped it. They've got a rule that says they're only allowed to carry the product 9 foot from the transport. So now me and Sherman have got to carry 40 sheets, which are heavy, from the garage down to here. So that's going to be our Friday afternoon workout, Mr. Motivator. So we've got to do that. We are looking for some jacks as well. If anyone's got any jacks they can lend us, or anybody knows any second-hand jacks, when I say jacks, the prop stands that obviously people use, that obviously you push them up, you put the rod in, then you can screw them, jack them up. Let me know, because in an ideal world it would be good to have a couple in here. We've obviously, as you can see, been doing makeshift props to make sure that we dot and dab the plasterboard up, but we hold it in place. The ones over there are bigger and heavier, so it would be good to try and have 2 jacks, piece of 2x6, jack them up, holds it in place, perfect. So if anybody knows anyone that can lend us a couple, ideally 4, 6, or know someone that would sell some, let me know in the comments below. That'd be greatly appreciated. You're hearing the drilling next door. That is the air conditioning condenser for the cottage that we're having moved now to where it should have been. So we had it designed to go under the steps near the pump room, out of the salt, out of the air. Initially we had it shut at the back just to get it up and live for guests we had coming at Christmas, but now it's September. So we're moving the condenser back where it should be. But what we're doing is we're routing the cabling into the basement next door, and obviously mounting under the stairs, which I'll show you in a second. So this afternoon's game, as you can see here, we've got all the fillers. We're going to be skimming these walls once the sheets are up and the plasterboard's in. We're going to be doing a very thin skim coat around the walls to get them nice and smooth. I don't want that concrete-y sort of lined effect in the wall. It's going to end up being a plaster. And then obviously that'll be sanded down and it'll be painted. So everything in here will be bright white. We'll have an internet connection in the middle of the ceiling here, which is driven from our tech room next door. All these red cables, as you can see, we've got to run another 2. So we've got 3 in here going to the cottage, which is 2 cameras. Let me get that blur out of the way, sorry. We've got 2 cameras in the cottage and a hub spot, which is an internet point in there. And we're also going to be running a internet hub here as well. So we've got to run 4 cables to here, 3 continuing over that way, and 1 coming to the middle of the ceiling here. Now the only downside is that unfortunately when you're planning out the electrical and the data, you're meant to keep the data and the electric separate. Data lands up becoming unstable if it runs too near to power. Now we've got a clear corner up here with no power there at all, but every way we go, we hit something with power. So now I'm going to have to run 4 cables all the way along here. We have to cross this power here. So I'm looking for a shielded solution where I can shield the cabling to go over that power. And then when we get to here, we can run 1 centrally across this way, which is the hub. And then the other 3 need to carry on to this corner, come along this beam all the way to the very end. Then I've made a hole in that beam there, and I'll show you in the corner. We can go straight into the basement next door, and that feeds the cottage, as you can see. So So we'll come out of this top corner here, along here, up through that hole there, and everything will be tucked up, hidden in the ceiling. The downside to that is if I have to ever upgrade or change or run new cabling in, it will all be in the ceiling void. So I'm a bit concerned about that. But it is what it is. Worst case scenario, I'm going to have to run a conduit all the way around and run a new cable in. So let me know your thoughts below whether you think that's right or wrong. I know it's wrong, but I don't see any other reason why. I mean, maybe we can run another cable over there in the meantime. So rather than running 3 cables over that way, let's run a 4th one over there, a redundant cable that can be connected to and extended once we're in. That's probably the best bet. Okay. So, and then the next stage obviously is, you know, once the sheeting's up, the plasterboard's up, we'll cut the holes in for the lights. It's the electricians coming out, finishing off the panel, fixing the actual lights. We've actually got to go into the ceiling. Stuff like this, which is for future proofing. This is actually, you know, it's light switches for this bedroom when it becomes a bedroom. So at the moment we've got a conduit hanging out that would normally go into a wall. Here there would be a light switch with a doorway here. We're not going to have that. So we're going to have to come up with an idea about how to hide and house all of that into this corner here whilst it's one big room. Same again over here, a bit worse in fact. This is the bathroom. As you can see, that's the lights inside the bathroom. It's the light switches for the bathroom. It's probably a vanity mirror, etc. Again, right in the middle of the column. So we're going to have to come up with a way of actually boxing up there so that we haven't got loads of cables hanging down. Here and above, and also in the bathroom, we've actually got 2 holes for extraction. So we've got an electric extractor that will go into that wall there, and what it will do is it will pull air out that way. So any form of, you know, 1, it's a breathing exercise, 2, any heating it will be taken out that wall. So I need to buy 2 extractors of some sort that run on 110, and ideally that are on the light switch, so when you turn on the light, they come on and they start doing what they need to do. Those pipes also, you can't see from here, but those pipes go all the way through the marble floor of the cottage and they come out the other side. So they're literally out to fresh air. What else? Let me take you out. I'm not too sure if I've shown you all the plumbing we've had done, but the plumbing, I've got some sheets coming up already. So what we're doing at the moment next door is this condenser here, which was just left here because it comes straight out the side of the cottage, is being run down there. So let me show you what I mean. Spin it around. He says, but it won't spin around. Anyway, it won't spin around. So over here, we've got a hole. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the condenser pipes and the electric pipes down here into this wall, into the basement, and run it around. And then, bless it, it's not drilling. And then down here, where we're meant to, we're going to come out of this wall here, run along this wall, and we're going to house them underneath the steps here, which is where it should have been. That's the reason why we had those 2 power points put on the wall there. So he's downstairs, bless him, trying to drill through that wall. And that means all the electrics and all of the copper pipes will all be housed in that wall there, in the basement downstairs, and run across, he says. Obviously we've got all these sheets here, look, which have been put in the garage, thanks Koymans. Thanks to my Friday exercise, we've got to get that done. And I think I'll do a separate video on the actual water supply that we've had put in. I think I've shown you anyway, but it's all in now. We've got circulation pumps in. The house gets instant hot water to the taps. There's a plumbing company we've used on the island, which I'll share with you because they've been great guys. And a big shout out to Jean-Claude. You've been an absolute legend. And as you know, this channel's always been about trying to talk about negatives, talk about positives, and any good and bad trades, promote the great and just make people aware of the bad. Obviously, that's what this is about. So they've done an amazing job. And where we're concerned, I think I should talk about them, share their information, and promote their services because they've been great so far. And again, the human being in particular, Jean-Claude, literally very, very due diligent, very caring, wants to get the jobs complete right to the beginning. He's been absolutely brilliant. So I'll talk about him a bit later on. Other than that, we've got some other things going on, but I'll talk about that later stage. We're going to get this plasterboard down, and I'll give you a quick update on where we are with that in a second. But in the meantime, don't forget, give me that thumbs up below. Give me some comments on some of the questions I've asked you. Give me some suggestions, and I'll check in with you in a second. Okay, 2 stone lighter. Okay, so we've managed to get the 20 pairs of moisture resistant board downstairs. That was a mission. They're bloody heavy. How some of these plastering guys in the UK and around the world put up sheets of plasterboard on their own and screw them up. Jesus, fair play to you guys. Anyway, that's downstairs. In the meantime, we've also had the insulation board delivered. So we've got 30 sheets of that. That comes in 10 foots as well. I thought they were 8x4s, same as ply sheets or plasterboard, but they're actually 10x4s. So we've got 30 sheets of that as well. I've done a quick test down there. What did I do on my machine? Let me just quickly show you, if I can find it. So what we've done in the meantime is just quickly turn that off. So if you've ever seen one of these, so you can basically fire a laser and it tells you. So the ceiling at the moment is 40 degrees. So what we've also done is a couple of examples here. So we got one, this one here is actually with the cavity that we talked about. This one is directly on the ceiling, and so is that one there. So at the moment we're 37 degrees on the polystyrene straight onto the ceiling. Bear in mind that will be the heat in the room as well. The one that's foil backed that's on the ceiling direct, 35.6. And the one with the cavity is saying 36.2. So the issue we got in the moment is, let me give it a reset. The issue we got at the moment is not knowing which one is more effective than the other, because we don't have the door shut and there is an influence on the heat of the surface by the temperature of the room. So in the moment we're 35.6 with the cavity. We're 41, that doesn't look right. It is 41 on the one on the ceiling, and we're 37 with the polystyrene on the ceiling. So of this one here and this one here, the two being stuck on the ceiling, bear in mind there's a heat transfer, the thicker polystyrene at the moment seems to be more effective than the foil-backed board. However, we are 35.6 on the one that's cavity. Now bear in mind, like I said, that's not including the influence of the heat in here coming up to the surface as well. One might be more porous, I was about to say porous. The silver-backed one might reflect the heat more than the polystyrene. The polystyrene might absorb the heat versus the reflection. So until we physically get it done, we're not going to know. But common sense says you shouldn't have an insulation product directly on the heat because the heat will transfer. So there has to be a cavity. So at the moment we are pretty much, this one here will make us the positive to this one, is we can board straight across. That would be so much more simple. The negatives to it, bloody expensive. Yeah, it's quite expensive to have, and we've already got the polystyrene in stock, we're already paid for, so we wouldn't need to spend any money on that one. This one we'd have to spend money on. We'll also lose an extra 3/4 of the headroom because we're going to board straight across. And if we boarded straight across, we wouldn't have to cut and put it up and stick it and all that sort of stuff. So there's no cost, apart from the screws, there's no cost to put that one up. Whereas the other one, we would have to buy the fixer foam or the glue and stick that up. Plus heat transfers, which means it'd be more effective. So it's literally the cost of purchase versus the ease of putting up and creating a cavity. And I think once that's actually done, we can then plasterboard straight over that with the plasterboard, and that will then give us a true reflection on the heat of this room. And I think if you had air conditioning in here, the plasterboard would go cool and none of the heat would transfer through. So I think that's what we need to do. But we are then going to be 1.25 inches down from the wood, because we've got 1/2 inch of plasterboard and we've got 3/4 inch of board. But it's an easy, straightforward install, quite expensive, but with a cavity. The only other negative with it is cutting in the lights. So the LED spots that you use, I don't know if you know, again, sorry for teaching psychics if you do know, but they actually have a spring that on the outside, as you go up through the hole, comes over and grips onto the top of the plasterboard. Now we're going to go from 1/2 inch to 1.25 inches. Those springs won't be able to go up and latch over, which means we'll have to cut a bigger hole where the lights are going to be concerned in the silver foil. And what we're going to have to do is probably put a proportion of that silver foil up onto the ceiling potentially. However, we're only looking at this much of a gap. So if I put the silver foil onto the ceiling, we will get about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch gap for the lights to go up and over, which should be enough. So, but it does mean what we'll have to do is there'll be a gap between the bit on the ceiling and the bit on the joist, which means we'll have to fix the foam across to stop the heat coming down and try to come out through the light fitting. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to glue up these silver squares all over where the light fittings are. So everywhere you see one of these, everywhere you see a cable and a star is where we're going to be putting one of these LEDs. So what we'll have to do is cut the whole piece out, probably around about 6 inches by the width of the wood, stick that up, and then afterwards the cable can be tacked or glued to that silver foil, waiting for the plasterboard to go over. Then we can cut the size of the plasterboard hole, pull the cable down, fix up. Ideally, hopefully there's enough room to slide the driver down, because again, I don't know if you know, but the LED spots have these little tiny drivers that the power goes into, and then the drivers connect into the LED. So we'll also have to make sure there's enough room to slide the drivers down to ensure that we can connect up. So it's a little bit more complicated than I thought. The downside is, what I don't want to do is cut the hole, have no insulation there, because then the heat's going to try and come through that weakness being the light fitting. So, any other ideas around that solution, that problem, let me know in the comments below. Because obviously what we've got to do is, depending on whether we go for 4-inch or 5-inch LEDs, we're going to have to drill a hole in the plasterboard for the light fitting to go into, but then we are going to have insulation above to stop the heat coming down, and we're going to have enough cavity for the little driver to be in there and cabled up. So, welcome to my world, nothing straightforward. As you can see, there's our pile of death. That was the pain in the backside. These packs of 10 were reasonably light. The guy that just delivered them lifted them in his own, but me and Sherwin did it together. So, but yeah, so we've got the sheets now. So the good thing about it is, next week, once we've actually got the data cabling sorted out, running, and then obviously along this corner through the conduit, you see the conduit here? We've got to do the conduits along here, get the cables run through. I am going to run, like I said just a minute ago, an extra cable over to the cottage just in case for redundancy. I am also going to run another cable from the hub point here over to that far wall there, just in case we need some form of Cat5 manual plug-in or another hub spot. Again, if I've forgotten anything, let me know in the comments below. Is there anything else I should be thinking about from a redundant point of view here? We're going to run a conduit from this wall over to this wall, just in case we need to run anything up and across, because once the ceiling's in, it's in. So I'm just thinking of anything at all you can think of to take cabling from one side to the other, because once the ceiling's in, it's done. This at some stage, like I said to you, will be a bedroom if I was going to turn it into an apartment, and there will be a wall going from this column. So do I potentially take a conduit again from over here on this wall here, take it right over to the wall that's here, and again just put a hole in the wall, maybe a little round circle in the ceiling with some form of plug or cap. So again, if I ever need to take anything from over there to here, so yeah, anything you can think of, guys, that I need to be doing in that ceiling before the ceiling goes up, let me know, because we're not just about putting plasterboard up, we're going to be putting insulation up. We're going to have to do all the pre-drills and pre-cuts in that insulation before we put the board up. Once that's done, it's done. There's nothing else that's going to be able to go through that ceiling. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you think there's anything else I should be doing up there, just in case. Bear in mind, technology's changing and things are evolving. There might be something you know and you're thinking, oh, I've completely forgotten about. Anyway, that's it for now. We've drilled the holes over the road, by the way, which I might quickly show you on this video just so you can see them. But a lot of drilling over the road. The cables have got, the holes are quite simple. We're going to be running the conduits in, but I think I'll do a run up on that on Monday. So that will be the electrics, the condenser copper pipes, and all of that insulation trunking going into the basement, running around in L shape straight out and moving the condenser from the back of the house to underneath the wall. Quite a simple move for the guys, and but they're just limits. They've just gone off to get some more trunking, but that looks like that's going to get finished. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up below if you don't mind. Give me some comments below, certainly to the questions I've been asking. Any help you can give me greatly appreciated. And I think next week it's going to be sticking on the old 3/4 lengths and sponsored by DeWalt. Hint, hint, DeWalt, hint, hint. And obviously with them running all the cables around, getting the ceiling insulation up, and then starting on the boarding. So wish me luck and have a great weekend in the meantime. Thanks.